It's time for the 1430 Connection on 1430 WNAV and 99.9 FM, spotlighting news, newsmakers, and important community issues. Now, with this week's edition of the 1430 Connection, here is WNAV news anchor Donna Cole.
Welcome to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me today is Lieutenant Ryan Frashure. He's Public Information Officer for the Arundel County Police Department. Welcome back, Ryan. Thanks again for joining me.
Thank you. It's always good to be here.
So we're going to talk about two things. Primarily, one, Halloween safety, and then at the end of the show, we're also going to discuss something kind of special. So let's talk about Halloween safety. There's all sorts of tips you're putting out. What do parents need to be aware of? What do drivers need to be aware of? What do kids need to be aware of?
Right. Well, first off, the Anne Arundel County Police Department, as with every Halloween, this year will be providing additional patrols in preparation for the Halloween activities that take place throughout the county to deter criminal activity. So we're going to make sure our citizens are safe by expecting to see a good visible presence and some not so visible presence of some plainclothes guys. But we have our tactical patrol units, or our TPUs, from each district. They'll be out in the neighborhoods doing extra patrols. We have some extra bike patrol officers. We have reserve officers, and we also have officers that are working overtime for a detail that we call Halloween patrol. And what these officers do is expect to see them in the neighborhood. Some are in uniform, some are in plain clothes. But the ones that are in uniform, you'll see riding around the neighborhoods in cars with those red flashing wigwag lights on their light bar. And we hope that this serves as some type of a crime deterrent for criminals, and just to let people know that we're in the area and we're there to keep them safe. Right. So one, to deter things from happening, and two, if something is happening or if you need to approach an officer, they're easily visible and you can find an officer quick. Couple of the safety tips that we would just like to go over briefly. Some may seem like they make more sense than other, but it's always good to get a good reminder and follow these safety tips. So the first is stay in groups while trick-or-treating. Always make sure that an adult or responsible person will be supervising any young children. Teach your children to stop at only homes or apartment buildings that are well lit, and never ever enter into a stranger's home. If you're not going with your child, make sure that the child knows the neighborhood and you know that the route that they're taking. That way, if something happens, you know where to look for them quickly.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Exactly where they're going.
Exactly. Yeah. So insist that treats be brought home for inspection before anything is eaten. Always walk, don't run from house to house. Make sure your kids are not crossing yards and lawns where there's any unseen objects or uneven terrain. That prevents a tripping hazard. And most of the injuries that we have during Halloween are from some type of a tripping hazard or a fall. Right. Make sure that the children are walking on sidewalks, never walk in the street. Make sure that they cross at a crosswalk and not in between cars so they're easily visible. Mm-hmm. Make sure that they carry a flashlight. That always helps to see better and see more clearly, and it makes children more visible as well. Make sure that knives, swords, or any type of other accessory are made from cardboard and flexible materials. Please don't let your children carry any sharp objects. If a mask is worn, make sure that there's plenty of room for the nose and for the mouth for breathing, large eye holes so they can see. It doesn't limit the sight visibility. So we always recommend that if you can, consider using face paint over a mask. It's just easier for your child to see. Mm-hmm. Costumes should not be long, so that way they prevent any type of a tripping hazard. If your children are allowed to go out after dark, make sure that their outfits are made with any type of light colored material, and if they are a dark material, it's easy to use some strips of reflective tape or glow sticks that would make them more visible. Make sure that you review all appropriate trick-or-treat safety precautions, including the pedestrian and traffic safety rules prior to going out. So, and last but not least, if you're out and about and you're driving on Halloween night, please be alert at all times. Be sure that the children are crossing in crosswalks, and just be aware if you're driving that kids are running around crazy. They're all excited. They're with their friends. They're not paying attention to what safety measures they need to take. So you need to take that extra precaution. Always be thinking of safety. So those kids get distracted easily when they're out with their friends.
Right. So, speaking of driving, Halloween's a big night for parties and for bars for adults. Will there be DUI patrols?
Yeah, we don't have any particular checkpoints set up. So, but we feel that we're more successful with prevention and education by doing DWI saturation patrols. So we have extra patrol cars that are out driving on the highways, trying to prevent looking for drunk drivers. So we do have that in effect as well.
Very good. All right, one other thing, and I sort of showed this to you before we started the interview. The Guardian Shield, Anne Arundel County Police Guardian Shield newsletter had a mention of pot edibles that look very much like real food wrappers. These were called Pot Tarts instead of Pop Tarts. You said you have not seen any of this in the county in recent history.
Yes, we haven't seen anything like that in recent history in the county. But again, I can't stress enough to the parents, our one safety tip was make sure that you inspect all candy. So just make sure that your kids know that they're not to eat any of that candy until they get back home. That way you can have a responsible adult look at that candy, inspect it, make sure that the packaging is still sealed, and anything that looks suspicious, either discard, or if you feel like it's something that the police needs to be aware of, please make sure you call us, let us come out and check it out. That way we know that we're safe.
All right. The other thing is there are facilities that are actually offering x-rays of candy. October 29th through the 31st, it looks like Patient First is providing free x-rays of candy from 6 to 9 p.m. at all 3 of their county locations. So if you're interested in that, that does exist. And this is again from Anne Arundel Police Department, guardianshield.org. It's AAPD, guardianshield.org. It is a gentleman, a retired police officer, Ryan tells me, that is the liaison between the police and the business community that puts these newsletters together. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, more about Halloween safety tips. I'm Donna Cole. This is the 1430 Connection. We will be right back. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. In the studio with me today is Lieutenant Ryan Frashure. He's Public Information Officer for the Anne Arundel County Police Department. He's sharing with us all sorts of great Halloween safety tips. Now, something that we all need to keep in mind are those that are on the sex offender registry. And exactly what is the sex offender registry?
Well, the sex offender registry is something that when someone is convicted of a sex crime, it's mandatory, it's mandated by a judge that they have to register as a sex offender. And that what that does is it's a way for the state to keep track of our sex offenders and make it public so people know what offenders are in their neighborhood and who they need to be aware of to stay safe.
Okay, so this ties in with Halloween because we're sending our kids out into the neighborhood, right, sometimes without us right next to them.
Right.
What do we need to be aware of with this?
Well, along with all of our other holiday safety tips and with our Halloween patrol, we also, for the past several years, have done an operation, what we call Operation Lights Out. And this operation is in conjunction with our state's attorney's office and with parole and probation. And what it is it's headed up by our criminal investigation division, sex offense unit. And they've organized it again this year. So what it is it's undercover cops or undercover detectives and patrol officers that conduct surveillance at a list of specific registered sex offenders throughout the county. And what they do is they surveil these people and they ensure that they're not participating in any holiday activities. The police department works with the Division of Parole and Probation. They monitor the activities of these specific registered sex offenders.
And by that, it's not every single sex offender on the registry that's going to be
correct
monitored.
Correct. And that's something that's very important for all of our parents out there to know is, you can get on that sex offender list, and just because you see someone's face on there and their information listed doesn't necessarily mean that they are prohibited from having contact with children. So depending on what their charges are, a judge places certain restrictions on certain people, and what happens is they fall into a certain tier is what they call them. So again, just because someone's on that list doesn't mean that they're prohibited from being with children. It just depends on what crime they were convicted of. So what happens is sometimes we'll get a parent who is aware of someone in their neighborhood, sees them on the sex offender registry list, sees that they're handing out candy. They'll call us. We gladly come out and check. We check the person and come to find out they are on the list. However, they're not prohibited from having contact with children. So the only people on that list that are not allowed to have contact with children are people that are on parole and probation, and that is a provision of their parole and probation that they cannot have contact with children. So what we do is we go around, we do surveillance on these houses, we go up and we do knock and talks at the residents and make sure that those people that are on the list that cannot have contact with children are being compliant. If they are not, we take a report, we pass that information along to parole and probation, and it goes to their parole officer, and the parole officer writes a warrant for a violation of their probation, and then they're subsequently arrested and served with that warrant.
So they are not allowed to give out Halloween candy?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. There are people on that list that are not allowed to give out Halloween candy. I can say with this operation that we do, we've been very successful. They know that we're out there doing our compliance checks. They know we're out there watching them. So we have very, very, very few. I can probably count on one hand how many within the past 10 years that has violated. And usually the ones that are violated, don't know the terms for whatever reason, don't know the terms of the probation and didn't know that they were prohibited. It's no secret that we're out there. We let them know that we're out there. It serves as a deterrent, and that way they know that we're out there watching, and it prevents them from having contact with children.
And you said you can count on one hand the times that people have violated this?
Yeah, it's very, very few times that we have violations. And again, that's because we make it well known they're parole officers, that they usually have to check in, so they make it well known and they publicize that we're going to be out there and we're going to be doing compliance checks. So we give them a heads up that we're going to be out there.
Now that we've panicked everybody about all the things that can go wrong, let's talk about some good stuff. First of all, what's your favorite candy?
If I had to pick, I would say a Kit Kat.
Kit Kat. Okay, apparently in Maryland, the number one is Milky Way, but I am the Reese's fan. And do you have kids? You will not be going out trick-or-treating. You're sort of handing out candy.
That's right. This year I will be handing out. This is my first Halloween, I think, in 17 years that I haven't had to work. So I think I'll pull dad duty and candy duty and stay at the house and hand out candy and make sure that we have a good time with the neighbors and make sure everybody's having fun.
And you're handing out Kit Kats, I'm guessing?
Those Kit Kats make the private stash.
Okay,
so that makes the private stash. That gets weeded out very quickly. So, and I'm one of those parents that I most certainly inspect all my kids' candy when they come home to make sure that everything's safe and everything's good, and to make sure that those Kit Kats make it into my bowl.
Tomorrow you're doing a Halloween party.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, tomorrow we're really looking forward to it. So we've partnered up with our animal control with their annual Halloween party, and it was very successful last year. I went last year for the first time. They have live bands, they have adoptions, they have a Halloween costume contest. It's a lot of fun. So this year we decided to do Candy with a Cop. So strictly volunteer. I think I have about 30 police officers so far that have volunteered to show up. And between 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock, we're going to shut down Maxwell Fry Road, which is in between Animal Control and headquarters. We're going to line up police cars, turn on the lights.
This is Millersville.
Millersville,
okay.
Yes. Yeah, we're going to line up police cars, turn on the lights, open up the trunks, and we're going to have officers just handing out candy to the kids as they come walk down the trunk. So
kids and journalists maybe too?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. We don't discriminate, that's for sure. So anyone who wants to come is welcome. It should be a good time. I know there's some officers that have contacted me about dressing up. Some are going to decorate their trunks. So it should be a really good time. We're really looking forward to it. The officers that have volunteered, I had so many contact me and wanted to volunteer. I know they're really looking forward to seeing the kids.
That's awesome. And I think there's going to be a canine demonstration too?
Yes. Yep.
Perfect.
Canine demonstration. Just a good time for everybody. A lot of good stuff going on Saturday.
One other thing to go back into this whole fear thing with the Halloween. Clowns. Is this a special concern this year?
It's not a special concern for us here in Anne Arundel County. We really only had one incident with the clowns. That was down in Annapolis City.
Which turned out to be fake.
That was quickly investigated and found out to be a false claim. So I think that the clown story it's nationwide. It was a social media craze for a while there, but certainly something that's on our radar. All of the officers that are out there are aware of the clown, crime wave that's out there in the sightings. So something we're going to be looking for. Will they be one or two people that probably take advantage of that and try to do something stupid? Maybe, but we're well aware of the clown situation. We're not concerned about it at all. We're not doing anything different.
Okay.
Not doing anything out of the ordinary. It's business as usual for us, with just being the high visibility, being there for our citizens, and just making sure that the kids are safe.
All right. Do you dress up on Halloween?
I plan on dressing up, so you'll have to come tomorrow or Saturday and see for yourself.
Perfect. All right, we're going to take another short break. When we come back, we're going to stray away from Halloween for a moment and talk about a specific dog. I'm Donna Cole. This is the 1430 Connection. We will be right back. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me today is Lieutenant Ryan Frashure. He's Public Information Officer for the Anne Arundel County Police Department. We've just talked about Halloween. Now we're going to veer off course and talk about my favorite subject, dogs. We've heard. Well, first of all, how many dogs do you have at home, personally?
I have one dog at home right now, yes.
Okay, and tell me about that dog.
The dog that we have is Prince. He is a service dog for my son, who is on the autism spectrum. We got that dog from Canine Companions for Independence, a very good organization out of Long Island, New York. So my wife, I have to thank her. She's the one that did all of the legwork. It's a very long process to be evaluated and to be picked to receive one of these service dogs. So she did a really good job with that, and it's been so successful for my son. And a lot of times I have to work on the weekend, so I'll go to different community events, not because I have to, a lot of times because I want to. But we go to a lot of community events. So, and they would fall on the weekends. And so I started taking my son and my family to a lot of these community events. And so my son would bring his dog Prince. And it was just amazing to see how many people would flock to my son Colby and his dog Prince. And, it just got us thinking, what a great way to bridge that gap between the police and the community. So what we did was we looked into it, and I went through the process. So I have applied for a facility dog, which is a companion dog for the police department.
That's just amazing.
Yeah, so it's really cool. We're really excited. So I have completed the process, and now I'm just waiting for the right dog to come along to be placed with the police department. So very looking forward to that. So once we are selected a dog, it's a 2-week training up in Long Island, New York. And then I'll bring the dog back here to Anne Arundel County, and the dog will live with me and my family. I'll bring the dog to work every day, and it'll just be a dog that we can take around to different police stations and be a stress reliever for the officers when they're in the office writing reports and doing different things. We're gonna go to community meetings, and it's gonna bridge that gap between community members and the police department. And so he's kind of going to be he or she, the dog will kind of be the mascot for the police department. And we think it's a great way to reach out to the community, to the public. It's a dog that we can certainly, we're looking into the options of using it in the courtroom to help out with victims to testify, young victims or victims of crime, to just make them feel more comfortable. Research has shown that having a dog there, a companion dog, relieves some of the stress, and it makes it easier for people to testify and to open up and to talk with having that support there.
Huge stress relief. They're used. They're being used in airports now. Other police departments around the country are using emotional support dogs.
Right. Correct.
Military, of course,
bases.
absolutely. In the event of a huge catastrophe, an emotional support dog is hugely helpful.
Exactly, yes.
So any number of, that's really cool. This is not the first time Anne Arundel County Police has had a dog on site that is an emotional support dog or therapy dog.
Correct. Yes, we have retired Deputy Chief Emerson Davis. When he was with the police department, he was a puppy raiser for Canine Companions for Independence. And what the puppy raisers do is they begin the process at a puppy stage with the basic commands of sit, stay, come, and with walking where the dog is supposed to walk with its head or ear right to your knee. So, and what he did was he trained and he raised a puppy, and he brought his puppy to work with him every day. So the puppy came to headquarters with him, came to our command meetings, and was very interactive with the police department. So it's kind of cool when you look back and think that, that was years ago, and we look now that my family has a dog through CCI, and we're now trying to obtain a dog for the police department through CCI. It's kind of cool that we have that history with this organization, this CCI organization out of Long Island, and it kind of makes it kind of come full circle. So it's very cool.
That is incredibly cool. What's the timeline on this? When are you looking at possibly going up to Long Island for training?
Well, it all depends on the dog. So they say the dog chooses you. So, and the trainers up there are phenomenal. They're experts in the field, and so I think when you go up there for the training, they already have 1 or 2 dogs that they think is going to be suited for you. And then when you go up for the training, it's a lot of classroom training. Then they introduce the dogs, and they watch how you interact with the dogs and how the dog interacts with you. The dog already knows all the commands and knows what he's doing.
Right.
And it's funny sometimes when you're learning, when we went through the learning process with my son, the dog kind of looks up at you when you're saying the wrong command and kind of looks at you like, hey,
You're
that's
wrong.
not the right thing. Yeah. So, and they say the dog chooses you. So it's just a matter of time to when the right dog comes along. So there's certain characteristics and certain personalities that they look for in each dog. All the dogs are trained the same. So when they're training these dogs, they don't know whether the dog is going to end up with someone in a wheelchair or that has certain needs, or whether it's going to end up with a police department. So they're all trained the same. My son's dog does a lot of very cool things that we have him do just to stay proficient in things. The dog can pick up a credit card up off the floor, can open and shut doors, open and shut drawers, can hit buttons to make the elevator doors open and go up and down.
That's so amazing.
Not things that he always needs, but again, those dogs are trained because they don't know who they're going to end up with. So they have a lot of dogs. They have a good feeder system, and again, they wait for the right dog to come along. That way, they can match you with the dog and it be a successful relationship for everybody involved.
Super.
Yeah.
Ryan, thank you so much for joining me again today. Happy Halloween.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here, and happy Halloween to you too. And don't eat too many Reese's cups. For sure.
This is the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. We'll see you next week.